Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to partially blind bake pie crust. So I'm going to be using 1¼ cups of all-purpose flour, a quarter teaspoon of salt. Then I'm going to sift everything together. Then I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar, mix everything to combine. When I'm done, I'm gonna add ½ cup of cold butter. I have already cut the butter into cubes and refrigerated them. This is gonna help them cool down individually. Then I'm gonna blend the butter into the flour. You can blend the butter in with a pastry blender or with your fingers or with a fork. So I'm gonna continue blending it until it starts forming little clumps like breadcrumbs. Sometimes it is advantageous to have large pieces of butter that did not blend completely into the flour because it's going to make the crust to be more flaky. Finally, the butter is properly mixed in. I'm just going to scrape off anything attached to the pastry blender. As you can see, it looks like breadcrumbs with different sizes. So it is time to add the ice cold water. Depending on how your flour was stored, you're going to need more or less. So I'm just going to be adding the water a tablespoon at a time. This is 2 tablespoons of water. I'm just going to be adding a tablespoon at a time until there's enough moisture to bind everything together. We don't want it very wet though. We just want the water to moisten it enough to bind everything together. I just added another tablespoon of water. I'll continue to mix. Another way to know if it is ready by just looking at it is that it will begin to clump. That's when you know that there's enough moisture. Then you can start to check to see if it is ready by grabbing some of the dough, press it tightly in your hand. If it stays together, that means it is ready. But if it falls apart, that means you need to add some more water. As you can see, it is ready. It is sticking together. There's no need for more water. So I'm just going to transfer it to a work surface and mold it into a disc. Because the dough is not too wet, it is going to require some effort to mold it into a disc. So try as much as possible not to knead it. So if this is your first time on my channel or you are a returning viewer and you are not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe button and on the notification bell so that you can get an alert whenever I post a video. Like and share the video. Thank you and God bless you. Let me also use this opportunity to send a very special shout out to all those that have subscribed. You guys are the best. I love you. Thank you and God bless you. So now that the dough is ready, I'm going to wrap it in a plastic wrap before I refrigerate it so that it doesn't dry out. So you can refrigerate it for at least 30 minutes to an hour or overnight or for up to a week. Another way to bind the dough nicely together is to roll it with a rolling pin so that it will press together tightly, and when it is resting in the fridge, it's going to come together perfectly. So I'm going to refrigerate it until I need it. So I'm going to be using a 9-inch glass round pie plate and also some flour for dusting. So I'm going to dust the board with some flour and also the rolling pin because you don't want the dough to stick to the board. So you roll it, move it, roll it and move it. If you just roll it continuously and you don't move it, the dough is going to stick to the board and you cannot lift it up. It is also very important to roll the dough from the inside out because you don't want the middle to be very thick and the edges very thin. So you roll it out from the inside. That way it is going to spread out nicely. And when it begins to spread out, you're going to discover that there are some tears around the edges. Just go in, fix it with your hand. It happens every time. So I'm going to try as much as possible to fix the edges so that it is circular because I'm going to be baking it in a round dish. That is why it is very important to mold your dough into a disc so that when you start rolling it out, it's going to maintain the circular shape. When the dough is finally rolled out, Check to see if there's even thickness by rubbing your hand over it. You can tell if it is even or not. If it is even, then you can use the plate to measure it to see if the dough is 2 inches larger than the plate. Then you can roll the dough on the rolling pin to use it to transfer it into the pie dish. So I'm just gonna push the dough into the dish so that it can sit nicely on it. Dough tends to shrink when it is cooked, so it is very important not to pull it but to push it in. So when it sits nicely on the plate, then you can decorate the edges. So I'm just using my finger to press the dough against the dish so that it can sit nicely. Some people prefer to trim off the excess dough at the edges, but because I love the crust a lot, I just fold it over before I decorate it. This is also a good time to fix the edges, especially when there's a rip. You can smoothen it, then decorate it whichever way you want. So to decorate the edges, I'm gonna be making a simple pinched edge. I'm just gonna use 3 fingers, one to push it in and the other 2 to hold the dough. It is actually very easy to make. So when you make it the first time, it might not look perfect, but one good thing about it, you can still go back and adjust it. So because this is a blind bake pie, I'm going to freeze it after I'm done so you can see it looks so beautiful, so perfect. So I'm going to use this time to poke some holes into the dough. This is going to help the steam to escape when it is being baked. If you don't do it, the pie is going to puff up and you're not going to like it. So I'm going to freeze it for at least 1 hour. After 1 hour, it is time to bake the shell. I have already preheated the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which is also the same as 220 degrees Celsius. So I just crumbled the parchment paper that I'm going to line the crust with so that I can add weight to weigh it down. It is way easier for the parchment paper to fit in when it is crumbled. There are so many things you can use to weigh the crust down, but I'm going to be using cornmeal. You can use rice, beans, and whatever you have. The purpose of weighing it down is to prevent it from puffing up and also pulling away from the pan and collapsing during the baking process. This is just a way to maintain the shape of the pie crust. So I'm just trying to spread it out so that there will be even distribution and the weight can rest upon the wall of the pie crust. I'm gonna first bake it for 15 minutes with the weight on. Then after 15 minutes, I'm gonna take off the weight and reduce the heat to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is also the same as 190 degrees Celsius. In order for the edges not to burn, I'm gonna cover it with foil. I created the tent in a way to ensure that the middle is open and the edges are covered. Believe it or not, the edges develop more color faster than the middle. This is gonna give the middle the chance to really cook and dry up while preserving the edges from burning. So I'm gonna put it back in for 5 to 10 minutes. So while it is baking, I'm gonna make the egg wash. So I'm using 1 large egg and 1 tablespoon of milk. You could use water or cream. Some people even use only the egg white or the egg yolk with some liquid. So I'm just gonna whisk everything together and set it aside. After 10 minutes, it is ready. I'm just gonna vent it so that the steam can escape. In case you want to make a no-bake pie, you can leave it longer in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes or until it is golden brown. So I'm just gonna quickly apply the egg wash while it is still very hot. Brush it evenly over the pie crust. This is gonna seal the holes in the pie so that any mixture you pour into the pie does not seep through, and it is also gonna give it that shiny golden brown color. So when I'm done, I'm just gonna set it aside to dry up. Except you want to make a no-bake pie, you can put it back in the oven to develop a golden brown color. Otherwise, this is a perfect crust for pumpkin pies, fruit pies, custard pies. So in case you have a recipe that calls for blind bake pie, why don't you give this recipe a try? I promise you, you're gonna love it. So thank you guys for watching. Till I see you next time. Stay safe, stay blessed. I love you. Bye.